Now, John Boyega, the actor who of course plays Finn in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, just in an interview with GQ magazine where he had some rather interesting things to say about the experience and directly to Disney. And though I'm going to go over it here in this video and give my thoughts, as always, I do encourage you to read the full article for yourselves, link to it in the description below, in order to get the full context and to come away with your own conclusions. But anyway, let's now jump right into it with the first quote taken from the article where John Boyega said this. It's so difficult to maneuver. You get yourself involved in projects and you're not necessarily going to like everything, but what I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up. Okay, so clearly Boyega is upset that, especially in the trailer for The Force Awakens, I'd imagine, it was implied or heavily hinted at that he might end up being a Jedi or at least Force sensitive, but it was just a distraction or red herring, and that wasn't going to be the case, though it would kind of be confirmed he's Force sensitive in The Rise of Skywalker, and that overall Finn doesn't have the biggest of roles in the movies, and doing this or using or promoting him in this way without a payoff was especially wrong because he is a black man or plays a black character. He then goes on to say this. Like, you guys knew what to do with Daisy Ridley. You knew what to do with Adam Driver. You knew what to do with these other people. But when it came to Kelly Marie Tran, when it came to John Boyega, you know F all. So what do you want me to say? What they want you to say is, I enjoyed being a part of it. It was a great experience. Nah. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. They gave all the nuance to Adam Driver, all the nuance to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest. Daisy knows this. Adam knows this. Everybody knows this. I'm not exposing anything. And well, first of all here, let me say I think overall they failed with all the characters. None of them were handled exceptionally well. But the greatest effort, if you want to call it that, was certainly made with Kylo Ren or Adam Driver's character, and Rey, Daisy Ridley's character. But that's because they were the two main characters of the entire story, so yeah, they were going to get the most thought or attention put into them. But that said, most again would agree even they weren't handled particularly well, that the whole story was just one big mess. Heck, pretty much every one of them, every major actor involved in the movies, has come out and said they don't want anything to do with Star Wars anymore, which should tell you how wonderful of an experience it was for all of them. And look, I can certainly understand Boyega's anger and frustration. I don't blame him for it. That trailer for The Force Awakens did imply Finn was going to have a much bigger role than he ultimately did, that he might even end up being a Jedi, and I certainly think the potential of his character and his ability as an actor was wasted when he had one of, if not the most interesting backstories of all the new characters. I mean, it was the first time in the movies that we were going to go under the helmet, if you will, and get to know a stormtrooper, and then seeing him join the good guys and possibly even become a Jedi. It sounds like a great story and a wasted idea, and when I did a poll not long ago asking who had the most wasted potential in the sequels, Finn won the thing hands down. He had over half the votes out of 5 people, and virtually everyone seems to think he is a wasted character. But here's the thing about all this, and I know some of you are very much going to disagree with me, which is fine, or find this hateful somehow, which is not my intent. I'm just trying to look at this from all sides and as logically and as rationally as I can. Anyway, I don't think Disney and or Lucasfilm have an obligation to do something with a character just because of their race or gender. Not that I think that's exactly what Boyega is trying to say here, but it is kind of what this whole discussion boils down to, that promoting a character a certain way and not delivering is more egregious if that actor or character is a certain race or gender or sexuality or whatever else it might be. When really here, and for better or worse, and I'm not trying to defend Disney and Lucasfilm, but it's their prerogative to do what they will with these characters when it comes to the movies or marketing them, but they then of course have to deal with the ramifications of mismarketing or making a bad movie or doing something stupid with a character. I mean, they made an interesting call with the character of Luke Skywalker, which was done in an attempt to tell what they thought would be a good story, and some people certainly do enjoy The Last Jedi, while others do not. And then look what they did with Snoke, chopped him in two halfway through the second movie, and when some fans were upset by that or complained, they were told to deal with it and that the story was never about him, he was just a distraction or red herring for the real villain. And I'm not saying this is the exact same thing or close to it that happened to John Boyega or his character of Finn. I agree with the results of that poll that said he had the most wasted potential. I'm only trying to say that all around, these movies, the sequel trilogy, ended up becoming a mess of a story, and that many characters were wasted or misused, but that I don't think there was any intent to waste or misuse a particular character. It was just incompetence. In fact, I'm sure they wanted this to be a great story and a great movie, and for all these characters to end up becoming iconic. And going along with that, I feel like every decision made, be that who they cast or whatever else it might be, should be made with the desire to make the best possible movie in mind. And that's what they want too. They want the movies to be great and for the characters to be, again, iconic, so that it can make the most possible money, which, let's be real here, is the only thing they really care about. In fact, we saw just how important making money was to them over anything and everything else when Finn's image was shrunk on the Chinese poster for The Force Awakens, which is funny in a sad sort of way, that in one market they try to hype him up like he's going to be something bigger than what he'll be, while in the other they try to downplay him. And it really exposes the truth or hypocrisy behind the push for diversity by some in Hollywood and elsewhere, that it's only important when it's good for optics or when it can make them money, which is why a lot of people get upset when they hear about diversity. It's not that they're against it, they just know or see the truth, that in many cases it's not about the cause itself, it's about the almighty dollar or looking good and virtuous. But if it might cost them something, if they think it'll hurt sales in China, it gets abandoned or pushed to the side in a heartbeat. And if you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is, then I don't really want to hear what you have to say. And look here, who knows what's really going on? Maybe to some extent, maybe to a large extent, Finn was sidelined primarily in a sad attempt to appease the Chinese market, the second biggest and fastest growing market for films in the world, because Star Wars has struggled mightily over there. It's just not as popular in China as it is in so many other countries across the world. And Disney, especially years ago when they no doubt had some very ambitious plans for Star Wars that have since been curtailed, they want to see it thrive in the second largest market in the world, and they're probably willing to go to some pretty lengthy extents to make that happen. But I honestly think what happened to John Boyega's character of Finn, and many others, had more to do with poor planning overall, or a lack of a shared vision between the different writers and directors, as well as those overseeing the whole thing, than anything else. I think it's very possible that J.J. Abrams originally intended for much more to be done with the character of Finn, that maybe he was going to have a much larger part to play in the trilogy, and maybe even become a Jedi, which got discarded by Rian Johnson, because in this interview with GQ, Boyega even says of J.J. Abrams that everybody needs to leave my boy alone. He wasn't even supposed to come back and try to save your crap. And this is of course referring to the fact that originally Abrams was only going to do the first movie in the trilogy and only came back after Colin Trevorrow was fired on episode 9. And this tells us what John Boyega really thinks about The Last Jedi, since he's basically praising Abrams and saying that he had to come back and try and save the trilogy after what Johnson had did in 8, that he had to try and fix the story after what Johnson had done to it. Anyway, here again, I certainly understand John Boyega's anger, and I can appreciate the fact that he's fighting for a cause he believes very strongly in. It's a cause all decent people agree with, though we may not all agree with how the fight should be waged on how to get to true equality for all. Anyway, I think this is just more evidence that the sequel trilogy was poorly handled all around, that it was just a mess. And you can certainly like it or love it if you want, that's absolutely fine. I have no issue with people enjoying something that I did not. And you can of course point out how well it did at the box office as some type of evidence that it was a success, despite the fact that each subsequent movie made less and less. But I can't help but feel like it's one of the biggest all-around mistakes in the history of film. It could have and should have been so much more, and the character of Finn could have and should have been so much more as well. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me how you feel or what you think about what John Boyega had to say, or what I had to say about what he had to say. So leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.